Hey, welcome to the file backup demo. I'll first talk about manual backup and then we'll finish off with having a look at live monitoring. So manual backup provides the initial configuration page. You can manually select the directories yourself. Otherwise, you can head over to the JSON configuration file here and set up all the tasks at once rather than having to do them over and over again. This configuration file is located in the user home directory under .file backup, and the main criteria that needs to be satisfied here is the last subdirectory in the current working directory and backup directory must be identical. This is to give the backup tool a common directory to start at when executing the backup. Also, if you know that your current working directory has symbolic links and you want those to be followed during the backup process, enable follow symlinks to true. For the most part, this can be set to false. However, if you do know you have symbolic links in the current working directory and you set this to false, it's possible some data might be lost in the backup process, as not all paths can be explored properly. If there's anything wrong with the path, then the error will be displayed in the status section here. So for example, I have a my files directory on the F drive that isn't present, which is why it's saying it doesn't exist. Otherwise, if everything's all good, it will give the option to run the initial backup stage. So I've got a typical use case here I'll go through. I've got a file on my desktop called my files. I want to keep a backup of all these files, and the backup will be stored on my E drive under my files. So I've got a USB E drive here, and the starting setup is I copied and pasted my files on my current working directory and pasted it into my USB drive. So now these two directories are exactly the same as each other. This is to give the backup a common base to begin at. So when I create or modify files and run the backup will be able to compare all the files in here to what's in the backup. Then any changes will be committed to the backup, so now these two folders will be in sync again. If you didn't want to perform the initial copy and paste, then it's possible just to have an empty my files directory on the backup, and the backup tool will see that these are all brand new files and copy them over and paste them over for you. Otherwise, I just generally copy the whole file myself and make sure that these are the same to start with. Once those are done, we're ready to begin the backup to see what's changed. So I'm going to select this one, run the backup. It says 0 files are ready for backup, and that is because both of these directories are exactly the same as each other at the moment. So I'm going to go in and change some files. I'm going to delete 2, and I'll create another new file as well. So I've made 3 changes. I'm going to rerun our backup again. And it's detected I've made 3 changes, and here are the files that have changed. I created the new one, modified July 1 and deleted July 2. There's some additional information as well, such as the modified file. It tells you the last time you backed it up, which was about 8 minutes ago. The missing timestamps are because for the first one it's a new file, but it doesn't exist on the backup, which is why there's no backup time. And likewise, if you're deleting it, the current working directory no longer has a copy, which is why there's no timestamp there. Additionally, there's some statistics of how many files have been scanned, how many directories and things like that. It can be useful to see how much work's been done per backup. But once we're happy with all this, we can actually apply the changes to the backup, because this screen here, it's a read-only view of what's happened. It doesn't actually commit the changes yet. So if we want to apply the changes to the backup drive to make sure that the current working drive and backup drive are now in sync with each other, we can execute the backup. So all of these operations have been successful, and these were the operations that were performed. Additionally, we've got some further information to the right here. Specifically, it allows you to drill in a bit deeper to gain visibility of what's actually happened in each backup stage. So if we go to the the new file system action here that was created to create the quote new file. It shows that 2 backup stages were required to do this action. Specifically, we were needed to create all non-existing parent directories first before we created the new file. Once those parent directories existed, we went ahead and actually performed the copy and replace. This is mostly a developer tool where it can be useful to diagnose any errors by drilling down deeper further into the process. Just like to show what happens when we delete an entire directory as well, as the results are displayed a little bit differently. So in my current working directory, I'm going to delete the entire daily quotes folder. So that's now gone. I'll rerun the backup. This time it says there's 1 file ready for backup, but this time it's of the directory type. I'm going to apply these changes and execute them, so the backup and current drive are now in sync again. This time it says been 1 directory deleted, but we can dive in deeper to see what files within that directory were deleted. So there's 11 files deleted. If we go over here to the details section, inside here there will be a description of every file contained within that directory that was deleted, and similarly to the last step, we can dive deeper and see the specific action, which was delete a single backup file from this path. And that's pretty much the manual backup process. So to finish off, I'll go into the USB drive here. We can see that all that quote directory is now gone. So it did apply the changes successfully. So lastly, we'll have a look at live monitoring. So with the manual backup, we could see that every file in the current directory was scanned, but we can take a shortcut here if we enable live monitoring, which allows you to track all the changes in the files that were only changed. So it's like a mini version control system. I'll just zoom out here a bit so we can see the bottom panel. So here we can see that it's live and monitoring down the bottom right here. There's a log activity window here that will show up all the changes that have been applied to the file system. So at the moment we're listening to all changes in all of these directories. So if I go into this folder here, keep an eye down here on the live monitoring window. It will recognize that a file has changed, which will allow us to, instead of scanning every single directory in here, we've only known that intro.txt has changed. That means when we stop and run the backup down here, then we have to do less work because we don't have to scan all. There's about 4,000 files in here. Instead, we can only scan a minimal amount of files based on where this current path is headed. So if you've got a really large data set, this can be a substantial improvement. However, in my GitHub page under issues, there's several issues using this in Windows which are to be mindful about. The best platform to use this on is Linux because all features work as you'd expect, but in general, if you use live monitoring in combination with manual backup, the two work really well, because if there's any errors during the live monitoring phase, they'll be reported in the log window, and there'll be a pop-up message saying if your backup is at risk of losing data, you can optionally run the manual backup instead, which will give you the guarantee that nothing will be missed. But if everything went well, the live backup will allow you to take the shortcut. So yeah, that's the demo of the file backup program. If you'd like any more information, check out the README on my GitHub. But yeah, thanks for watching.